Hello, greetings everyone. I just wanted to get on here and make a video about the ancient Israelites and their possible ethnicity based off of biblical text, and also why Haplogroup T, and what ethnicity they were in the archaeological site of Pekin Cave in Upper Galilee. Okay, I made a chart here, a chart that has biblical timeline. The line you see, the horizontal line here, the long horizontal line, is a timeline based off of the genealogical information in the Bible, the chronological genealogy of the Bible that allows us to build a timeline. The Bible gave us from Adam all the way to Jesus the amount of years that each patriarch lived and at what age they begot the next generation. So based off of that, you could daisy chain and make the timeline. And what that gives us is from Adam to Abraham, 2,000 years. From Abraham to Jesus, 2,000 years. And here in the age of grace, we are living in the year 2024 of our Lord Jesus Christ. So based off of that timeline from the Bible, we have is what I put here. Also, above that horizontal timeline, I made some nodes that have biblical text from the KJV Bible. I also have verses from the Ethiopian Book of Enoch, which for a long time was scoffed at and wasn't believed to be accurate. They thought it was anecdotal. But when they discovered the Dead Sea Scrolls from Qumran, they found fragments of the Book of Enoch. They don't have the complete book, but there's a lot of fragments, and they do lend a great vote of confidence to the Book of Enoch of the Ethiopians. And here we also have a verse or a segment of one of the fragments of a Dead Sea Scroll called the Genesis Apocryphon. Okay, so that's what we have on the nodes that are above the timeline. And underneath the timeline, I made a genealogical tree based off of both the KJV Bible and the Ethiopian Book of Enoch. Okay, and then also at the bottom down here, I have information on the Peqi'in Cave samples and what has been discovered. And an interesting video that a gentleman made recently, and I'm going to go to his channel later on and recommend anyone interested in DNA to subscribe to his channel. He's putting out good technical data on a lot of these ancient samples. So we're going to go to that and a discovery that he talked about that I actually didn't know about. Okay. All right, so one thing that I've heard before said, and which I'm going to bring up, is a verse of Revelations that sometimes is twisted into something else, something that is not. And we're going to go to that verse. And it's from the Book of Revelations. And in the Book of Revelations, chapter 1, verse 14, it says, "His head and this is referring to God, right? In the vision, he saw God, and he said, his head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire. Now, a lot of people have twisted that into saying that God has nappy hair or kinky hair because of the wool, the reference to wool. But they're missing the point that it says his head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow. So it was not only his hair, but also his head, his whole head. And it was similar to wool in that it was white, as in the color, not the texture. It wasn't similar in texture, it was similar in color. That's what I see, what I read, what I understand. But that's the interpretation of some people. But in the Ethiopian Book of Enoch, I think we have something that is very telling that adds a lot more context to this. And we're going to go to it right here. I'm jumping all the way back here. All right. Oops, actually, let me move over here. All right, here we go. Okay, so this is the Enoch chapter 106, verses 1 through 18. And after some days, my son Methuselah took for his son Lamech a wife, and she became pregnant by him, and bore a son. And his body was white like snow, and red like the flower of a rose. And the hair of his head was white like wool, and his eyes were beautiful. And when he opened his eyes, he made the whole house bright. So what we're seeing here is a little more context to white like wool. Here that reference is made again about the hair being white like wool, but it says his body was white. His body was white like snow, and red like the flower of a rose, and the hair of his head was white like wool. But there's more reference to the verse later on. Let me show. Right here it says in verse 10 of chapter 106, it says, his color was whiter than snow and redder than the flower of a rose, and the hair of his head was whiter than white wool. So the reference to wool is clear here. It's saying that it was whiter than white wool. I mean, that's really asserting that the reference to wool is about the color, not the texture. And adding more context to this, we have in chapter 106, from the same chapter, where they associate them with the beings of the heavens, or the angels of the heavens. It says at 106 verse 5, it says, and he said to him, I have begotten a strange son. He is not like a man, but is like the children of the angels of heaven. And why would he say a thing like that? So now he already said that his body was white, that his hair was white, and the reference to wool is whiter than the white wool, right? And he's saying that it appears that it didn't sprung out of him, but rather from the angels of the heavens. And why would they say that? Well, because in chapter 89, verse 1 through 3, it says, "And one of those four that the white bull had instructed him in a secret, without his being terrified, he was born a bull and became a man." Okay, let's further down. It's not, actually, it's down here. Sorry. Chapter 87. Okay, verse 2 and 3. Okay. Began to cry aloud, and I raised mine eyes again to heaven, and I saw in the vision, and behold, there came forth from heaven beings who were like white men. And the four went forth from that place. 3, verse 3, and 3 with them. And those 3 that had last come forth grasped me by my hand, and took me up away from the generations of earth, and raised me up to a lofty place, and showed me. So the reason that he confused Noah from that may have sprung from the angels of the heavens is because in the vision of Enoch, the angels that he saw were as white men. And so basically what we're looking at here is that in chapter 87, Enoch is explaining how he got the vision, that in his dream, these angels that came down were as white men. And in chapter 89, he's basically describing part of that vision is here in chapter 89, which we're going to get into in a second here. But in chapter 106, it explains the birth of Noah. And Noah, in his birth, was born white. His body, it specifies, was white. And it says that his body was whiter than snow, and that his hair was whiter than the white wool. That's a lot of context, right? And then in chapter 89 is where Enoch is saying the vision before that event happened in chapter 106. So in chapter 89, he's talking about, he's given the vision by those angels. And it says, and one of those four that had, and one of those four went to that white bull and instructed him in a secret without being terrified. He was born a bull and became a man, and built himself a great vessel and dwelt thereon. And 3 bulls dwelt with him in that vessel, and they were covered in. So this is basically Noah. And it's giving the account of the flood, right? So, and it's describing Noah as a white bull, okay? And here's a little section that basically confirms that this is the account of the flood. It says on Enoch chapter 89, verse 8 and 9, it says, "Then the water began to run down into these, till the earth became visible. But that vessel settled on the earth, and the darkness retired, and light appeared. But that white bull, which had become a man, came out of that vessel, and the 3 bulls with him. And one of those 3 was white, like that bull, and one of them was red as blood, and one black. And that white bull departed from them." So the white bull departed from them. Then chapter 89, 10 through 15. And they began to bring forth beasts of the field and birds, so that there arose different genera: lions, tigers, wolves, dogs, hyenas, wild boars, foxes, squirrels, swine, falcons, vultures, kites, eagles, and ravens. And among them was born a white bull. And among them was born a white bull. Okay, verse 11. And they began to bite one another. But that white bull which was born amongst them begot a wild ass, and a white bull with it. And the wild asses multiplied, but that white bull which was born from him begat a black boar and a white sheep. And the former begat many boars, but that sheep begat 12 sheep. And when those 12 sheep had grown, they gave up one of them to the asses, and those asses gave up that sheep to the wolves. And that sheep grew up among the wolves. And the Lord brought the 11 sheep to live with it, and to pasture with it among the wolves. And they multiplied and became many flocks of sheep. And the wolves began to fear them, and they oppressed them until they destroyed their little ones. And they cast their young into a river of much water. But those sheep began to cry aloud on account of their little ones, and to complain unto the Lord. All right, so that's basically the captivity in Egypt. It's talking about basically the tree that I built below here. Based off of that, I built this tree. It says that basically Noah was a white bull that went into the vessel with 3 other bulls, a white one that was like him that went away, all right, a black bull, and a red bull. Now, which bull was Shem, black or red? We don't know, or white, okay? But what we do know is that it says that eventually another white bull was born. And it's describing that in the genealogy to be Abraham, right? And that white bull begat a wild ass, which to me is Ishmael, and a white bull as well, which would be Isaac. And then a black boar, which would be Esau. And we know that in the account of Genesis, Esau was born with red hair all over, like a hairy garment. And we do know that it refers to hair because later in Genesis, when Jacob supplants that blessing and his mother, Sarah, helps him lie to his father Abraham by cooking the venison for him and putting the skin of the venison over him, so that when Abraham touched his arm, he thought it was the hairy arm of Esau, right? And then, so that white bull would be Isaac, and he begot a white sheep in the book of Enoch, right? And that white sheep begot 12 sheep, and they sold one of those sheep to the boars, which would basically mean that Joseph, they sold Joseph to one of the descendants of Esau. And then they in turn sold him to the wolves, which in the wolves basically would be resembling Egypt. Anyhow, let's go to the verse in Genesis where it describes the birth of Isaac and Esau. All right, Genesis 25, chapter 25, verse 24 through 26. And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. They were twins, okay? And the first came out red all over, like an hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. And after that, his brother out, and his hand took hold of Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 80 years old when she bare them. All right, so that's Esau was born with red hair. Okay. And then in the Genesis Apocryphon, and then the reason this is important, yes, red hair is a feature that is usually found in Caucasians or in Europeans. But some people like to see that and say, oh no, his hair was red because he was albino. And it's interesting that that's been said, because that too works in the favor of Pekin now, apparently. All right. But here's another verse from the Genesis Apocryphon. All right. All right. How excellent, and this is the description of Abraham describing his wife Sarah, which, by the way, is also his half-sister. She's the daughter of Terah, just as he is. So they're half-brother and sister by way of his father. And they're also husband and wife. Okay. So it says, how excellent and beautiful is the expression on her face, and how pleasing. Delicate is her hair of her head. How beautiful are her eyes, and how pleasing is her nose, and all the bloom of her face. How lovely is her breast, and how beautiful is all her fairness. How beautiful is all of her fairness is referring to fairness as in complexion. And people that have done the translation and who know the original language do say that it refers to a light-colored complexion. And so they translated it this way. Her arms, how beautiful her hands, how perfect. Any glimpse of her hands is to be desired. How lovely are her palms, and how long and slender are all the fingers of her hands. Her feet, how beautiful, and how perfect are her thighs. No maidens or brides who enter the bridal chamber are more beautiful than she is. The beautifulness of her beauty is superior to that of all other women, and her beauty is above all of them. And with all this beauty she possesses much wisdom, and the work of her hands is beautiful. Okay. So basically, it's saying that she had white complexion is why I bring this up. Okay. So it's piling up. As far as Noah, in the dream, in the vision, he's seen as a white bull again. When Lamech is surprised at his appearance, what is different is all the things he lists is his white skin, and he thinks he's from the angels. And the reason he thinks it's from the angels is because the dream that Enoch had was in his vision, the angels that came down were as white men, it says. And then when they start multiplying after the account of the flood, you have a white bull born. Now, was he actually white in ethnicity? I don't know. That could be argued, but the point is that it does match in the case of Noah. He was described in the vision as a white bull. And when Noah was born, he was white. Maybe even albino, right? That definitely he could be albino. but certainly the complexion was white. So when Abraham is born, the Book of Enoch describes him as a white bull. Isaac is described as a white bull. And Jacob is described as a white sheep. Well, does that mean they were white? No, but earlier in the book, it does mean that. So it may or may not. Anyhow, it's up for interpretation. I understand that. But I built this tree, so I placed Noah next to where he would belong in the timeline. It says the white bull went away, so that's what I put. And did he come from the white bull? Was Shem the white bull? Was Shem the black bull or the red bull? We don't know. But it says that when Abraham was born, it says white bull. Isaac, white bull again. And Jacob, white sheep. Was Noah albino? It certainly seems like. Does that mean everyone else was albino? I don't know. People like to say there's no way there was white people in Israel. People find controversial the images of white Jesus. And I understand that. I don't think that Jesus was white either. He probably looked just like every other Middle Eastern populace. Otherwise, I think they would make a note of it. But as far as the original patriarchs, and by the way, even in the account of Exodus, in the book of Genesis, in the Torah, in the book of Exodus, it says that when Moses left Egypt, he left with a mixed multitude. They were mixed, all right? So, yeah, they probably weren't white, but this is referring to the original patriarchs, right? That's what we have. And how this correlates to Peqi'in Cave is because at the Pekin site, we have the samples, autosomal DNA, with alleles for blue eyes, alleles for blonde hair, alleles for light color skin. Not all of them, but many of them. And so that debunks the fact that Israelites were never white, or that there was never any white people in Israel. There were, and at this site with Haplogroup T, we see that. But what is really interesting, I'm going to turn this over. I don't know how this is going to come out, but hopefully it's all right. So the channel that I was watching on YouTube that brought this information I want to share, basically, I'm going to show his channel. Hopefully, you guys, if you're interested in DNA, you're probably going to want to subscribe. He's sharing a lot of good technical data, doing good analysis on ancient samples. And he was talking about the site at Pekin, and one of the samples, well, a couple of them, or many of them, had alleles for blue eyes, as we already know, but some of them even expressed blue eyes, he said, and fair skin, and blonde hair in a couple of them, and one of them even had albinism, which was surprising. So on the video I'm going to share, at the 14-minute and 22-second marker timestamp, you'll find that. But another thing about the Pekin site is that there's other controversial things here. One of them is they were found in ossuaries. Ossuaries were not a burial practice in Israel that was known about, other than Jews using that. So these ancient samples share that commonality with Jews, that they were using ossuaries. right? And although they're dated to 3,500 BCE, I like to say BC, or 4,500 BC, one of them has recently been reanalyzed, the Y chromosome part of it, and that is a sample I-1165, and it was found to have SMP F-FT13419. And the thing about that is that SMP on the human Y chromosome tree was believed to have emerged 650 BC, 650 years before Christ, not 4,500. So that's controversial. So you have that. If that's right, that puts it on the right time frame. And they're in ossuaries. And they have alleles for fair skin, light colored hair, blue eyes. Some of them even expressed it. And even albinism. And I just found that interesting. But we're about wrapped up here. But I want to share, I have some screenshots of some articles about Peqi'in Cave, by the way. Here he says, a total of 20 Pekin samples appear to be unrelated to each other to the limits of our resolution. That is, genetic analysis suggests that they are not first, second, or third degree relatives to each other. I know why they're only saying 20, because two of the male samples were father and son, I believe. Were found to be father and son. But the rest of them were not closely related, which means that although they were, distant, they were homogeneous, which is interesting because the Jewish community is homogeneous. Maybe it doesn't mean anything. It's just a grain of sand. But how many grains of sand make a heap? Right? Anyhow, over here we have an article as well that refers to these samples having blue eyes and fair skin at the bottom there. The blue-eyed, fair-skinned community didn't continue. So, this is talking about the same site. And then here, there's another one referring to this site. And it says, for example, the allele, one of two or more alternative forms of a gene that is responsible for blue eyes, was associated with 49% of the sample remains, suggesting that blue eyes had become common in people living in Upper Galilee. Another allele hinted that fair skin may have been widespread in the local population as well. Okay. So, in reference to the albinism and why it's significant, this is way back. And if you Google, this is a screenshot of me Googling this. They say that the earliest commentary about albinism appears, 250 BC, right? But that's actually not accurate because they're excluding biblical text. Because biblical text is going much further back to the birth of Noah, right? Which in the description really, really seems like albino, not just white. Okay. But by the way, to be clear, at the Pekin site, we have people that have white traits, and it's unrelated to albinism, but also additionally there's albinism, right? One sample. Okay. And here's a little screenshot of a calculation so that I can remember these numbers. I did this to show how rare, because albinism, if you Google it, albinism is so rare, it's only found 1 in 20,000. One person in 20,000 have albinism. And translated to percentage, that is 0.005%. That's how rare that is. And how rare was it back then? Was it even more rare or less? And what was the possible world population back then? I don't know, but I think that that's significant. And the following that I have set up here is albinism in black communities. Because some are probably going to say, well, blacks have a higher index of albinism, and that's true. And here in this article, it talks about how 1 in 4,000 people, and that is still 1 in 4,000 is still exceedingly rare. And the calculation for that, or the percentage, would be 0.025. 1 in 4 is 0.025%. Okay? And I just wanted to include calculations for red hair because Esau, the brother of Jacob, who was Israel, was born with red hair. And that is a trait that is European, or a trait that is common in the Caucasoid peoples. And it's pretty uncommon as well. And is basically 2%, which is about 1 in 50. 2% is about 1 in 50, or 2 every 100 people. Okay, and really quick before I go here, I want to go ahead and show this gentleman's video and his page, so that if you would subscribe to his channel, because it's really good. This is his I guess his channel name, and I'm gonna put the link to this video in the description. I'm gonna play a little segment of it, but I hope that you follow the link that I'm gonna put in the description so that you can see his whole video, and give him a like. I think it deserves it. All right. And he says that he's never seen this before. So this is the sample. This is the sample that he found, that he makes commentary on, that has albinism, that is from Peqi'in Cave.
Not really good. I'm just saying that it's good that that's in the file. She's also not an Asian flusher. Okay, she is a carrier of a cutaneous albinism type 2 mutation. That I haven't seen that, like, ever. I have never seen that before. Okay, hold on, what? Is this a genotyping error, or is this for real? So it looks like she's, not only is she really light, but she's also might be albino. Crazy. Alright, so for familiar Mediterranean fever, she's got 1 risk variant for that.
Alright. I'm not going to search where it says it, but he does say the sample name. If you want to go to that video, go to the link that I'm going to put on the description for that video, and you could hear the whole thing, and you'll hear the sample ID. But here I wrote down the sample ID that he gave us, that is from Pekin Cave, all right, which is I-1169. Okay. All right, well, that's pretty much it. That's all I wanted to share here. I hope that this can, I hope it gave you something to think about. And, again, what do you think? What is your opinion? I'm interested in seeing the comments, the commentary, and maybe start a conversation on this and help brainstorm around these questions. Okay, thank you for watching. All right, good night.